Greetings, fellow mortals. If you know anything about my channel, it's that I love Better Call Saul. It is a perfect television show. Not only that, it's the perfect prequel. The show redefined what I think prequels should be. That is to say, high quality instead of complete garbage. Because, let's face it, most prequels tend to suck. They're pandering at best and unnecessary at worst. Even one of the best shows of the year, House of the Dragon, doesn't drastically improve the original experience of Game of Thrones. Not that it should, it's set a long time before the original Game of Thrones show. Besides a few last names and concepts, it is a self-contained story. In a way, it's a spin-off more than a prequel. This isn't to insult the show, it's great, but I think that even the most diehard of fans will admit that you can watch one show without the other, which I think is good for the story that they're trying to tell. But this video is about hardcore prequels. If there's one single flaw in Better Call Saul, it's that you need to have watched Breaking Bad to fully appreciate the show. I consider it a double-edged sword. Better Call Saul is brilliant because it recontextualizes everything from Breaking Bad. It makes the viewer see the events of Walter White's story in an entirely different light. The prequel is perfect because it enhances the original. Of course, Better Call Saul relies on the original. Not too much, but enough. A lot of the emotional moments and tension wouldn't work as well if you watched Better Call Saul without watching Breaking Bad first, because it is, in fact, a continuation of the story. That's not even something that I can say about El Camino. While that is a good movie, I think that a viewer can get the whole picture of the tale without watching Jesse's final stand. The same cannot be said for Better Call Saul. If someone told me that they watched Breaking Bad, I would insist that they need to watch Better Call Saul immediately after. And I can say the same thing for the opposite circumstance. If someone was going to say that they wanted to watch Better Call Saul without Breaking Bad first, I would tell them that's a terrible idea. In a way, it is one long tale, and that's what makes it so amazing. From 2008 to 2022, the creators made a perfectly crafted story with little to no missteps. It started out great and ended legendarily. And the beautiful thing about it is that the universe is finally over. They won't be making any more content from the Breaking Bad universe. It gets to rest and have room to breathe. Well, for now. We all know that companies refuse to let any brand die. After all, look at the most famous prequels in cinema history. When it comes to movies, what do you think of when you hear prequels? Star Wars. Boy, howdy. Now, I'm going to state what might be a hot take here. The prequels are worse than the sequel trilogy. That will get people arguing, and this is just a matter of taste. In terms of direction, the prequels are in fact better planned out. There was direction which flowed between films, but the problem is that the direction was completely boring. In terms of technical storytelling, parts 1 through 3 are in fact better, but if there's one thing that you can't say about parts 7 through 9, it's that they're boring. Those films gain an emotional response out of everyone. You can have criticisms for each movie. The Force Awakens is basically a remake of A New Hope. The Last Jedi hates the fact that it's a Star Wars movie. Rise of Skywalker has a script that is the biggest mess that I have ever seen. But they are not boring. I smile every time I see a clip from those films. Maybe not for the reason that the creators intended, but still, I don't ever see clips of the prequels anywhere. I only see memes. Plus, I would argue that the prequels actively make the original trilogy worse. Can Darth Vader really be redeemed after being shown to slaughter children? Not really, in my opinion. But I can't say the same thing for Jimmy McGill / Saul Goodman. Well, I know for certain that he should be in jail for the rest of his life because he will scam people again. I can't say that I ever stopped liking him throughout all of Better Call Saul. Perhaps it could be because he never crossed the line of outright hurting children or the elderly. You could argue that he did that indirectly. I would never argue against that. But even at his darkest, worst moments, Saul Goodman couldn't bring himself to hurt an old woman. You could argue something similar with Mike and Gus. Perhaps not to the same degree. Mike does have a code after all. There are things that he would never do. And Gus does have lines. You could argue that his limits come from a place of practicality more than anything else, but he keeps his ego in check to do the right thing for his goals. None of that can be said, however, for Walter White. Both the Star Wars prequels and Better Call Saul do manage to make their most iconic figures more villainous. Darth Vader was shown being irredeemable, but Better Call Saul allowed us to see Walter White from other people's perspectives. He's arrogant, prideful, hateful, manipulative, uncaring, and will ruin his own goals for the sake of a whim. That's how everyone else sees him without the sympathy of being in his shoes, and it's brilliant. Better Call Saul does a multitude of things for me. It makes me feel ambitious to try to write prequels as brilliant as the show, and it raised my own standards. I will look at prequels differently for the rest of my life. I will hold them to the highest standards possible. Even the amazing Arcane. After all, despite how fantastic that show was, it could never make me interested in playing League of Legends. Ever. But the sad thing is I don't think that we're going to get anything like Better Call Saul anytime soon. God only knows that companies are going to keep continuing series for far too long, but none of them will accomplish what Jimmy McGill's story did. Instead, there'll be cash grabs like the horror movie prequels, entirely different stories like House of the Dragon, or advertisements like Arcane. I'm so sorry, Arcane. I love you, but it's true. You're just one giant ad for a video game. So I'll just have to accept what we have right now. No matter what, we'll always have Better Call Saul to make us feel better about the lack of quality in our entertainment. But what do you think? Am I completely off base here? Is there another prequel that you like? Do you think that there's going to be another story that will come along that can rival Better Call Saul? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your perspectives. And thank you so much for watching. If you like my takes on storytelling, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It would really help me out. Also, please remember that I'll be self-publishing my novel, Dance of Frozen Death, at the start of 2023. I hope that you will check it out. I appreciate you. Do not despair.